All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torah Studies.
Is the gate open?
The gate is open.
Okay, it wasn't when I.
The gates of heaven are also
They
open.
were open when I rolled in.
Yeah, I opened it. I opened it.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Jose, good to see you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Torah Studies, Vayeitzei, Rashi, Focus. How do we describe this class? Maybe the best one we've ever had? Possibly the best possible class in the history of classes? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. All right. So first of all, let's do this.
Say that on
He
all
says
classes.
that every class.
Yeah.
Guys are so on to me.
I'll hear that.
Listen.
Exactly.
Hold on. Time out. Let's understand something. Last week's Torah portion. What happens at the end? The father Yitzchak, father Isaac. That sounds like a different religion situation, but right, Yitzchak, who's the father. So he comes along and he says to his son Esau, which is the older son, Esau. He says to him, what does he say to him? I want to give you a blessing. Just get me some food. Hey, good to see you, Mira. I got the goods. All right. That sounds so dodgy. Whatever. So here's the deal, right? He says, I want to bless you, but before the blessing, I need some food. He knows his son is a hunter. His son is a chef. I mean, I just added that piece in. I don't know if that's true. But anyway, so he's up bringing food and I'll bless you. So commentators say, why do you need food for a blessing? You ever wonder that? He's a spiritual guy. Feed me. What is this? Is this like in the Peanuts? Remember Peanuts? 5 cents for advice. What is this like? I'll give you a blessing if you give me a steak, right? Blessings for steak. These were high stakes blessings. No.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It hurts so many different ways. But here's the point. Like, was that what's going? So the commentators explain. Hey, Dasi, good to see you. Huh? Oh, the roommates. Oh, yeah. That's yeah. Anyway. So yeah. So basically, it's the commentators explain that sometimes you need a physical handle for spiritual blessings. It's like you need an angle, you need something, or you need to be you need a vessel, right? You need a keli. Like when the Rebbe gave blessing, people came to the Rebbe for blessings, he gave them $1 for tzedakah. There's got to be some sort of physical vehicle or medium through which the blessing flows, through which the blessings. Also, it says that you only bless with an open heart when you're in a good mood. And you know what? People are people. People are in a good mood when they have a good meal. So he says, give me a good meal. I'll be in a good mood. I'll give you a good blessing. What happens? Who steps in? Cut to the next scene. Yaakov, Jacob. His mother says, dress up like your brother. Here's the food. I'll make it for you. Whatever, go in. Father is suspicious because he asked his son, how'd you get back so fast? I was expecting this to be... I was shocked when I Googled and I found out people have their Thanksgiving dinners at 2 p.m. Do you guys know this?
Yeah.
Do you guys know that that's a normal thing? I hear dinner. What do I think? 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Turns out.
After school, it's not Thanksgiving anymore.
That's right. Oh, okay. That's a good point also. That's a good point. No, I'm thinking Wednesday night should be the Thanksgiving dinner. Because the night before we're starting. Exactly. It's 7:12. Listen, if this was Jewish, oh my God. The turkey has to be between 7 and 8 pounds. If it's less than 7, it's not, that whole thing. But the point is that he comes back way too quick. So his father says, how'd you get back so fast from hunting? Because he thinks he's blind. He says, God gave me the blessing, God prepared it for me or whatever. Like, thank God it happened so fast. He's like, and who are you again? Because I'm pretty sure you don't usually speak like that, thanking God for all these things. And that's when he said and that's when he touched his arms, his hand, he felt him a little fuzzy, furry. And he says, Hakol kol Yaakov adayim de Esav, your hands, your voice is the voice of Jacob, but your hands are the hands of Esau. So what's the point? The point is there is deception. The deception is when Jacob takes the blessings. The deception doesn't stop there. I sound like an infomercial. Folks, the deception doesn't stop there. What happens? Deception rolls into this week's Torah portion. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about tonight. Because where is the deception? Let's go. Let's lead into it. And you guys know what I'm talking about, right? The deception is in who Yaakov is going to marry. The deceiver gets deceived. In the ultimate, you study Torah and you realize there's all these like nuances and twists and and mind games going on here. The deceiver gets deceived. He's the one who's pulling a fast one. And in the next scene, the fast one is pulled on him, precisely on him. So what happens? Vayeitzei Yaakov Beersheba ve'elech Harana. Yaakov, you know what? We have Chumashim here. Open them up. We're using the stone Chumash. What is it? 145. All right. I'm going to pull up online, by the way. So for those online, I'll pull up the relevant verses, but I'm just going to go through. We're just going to do a quick overview here. Vayeitzei opens up 145. Vayeitzei Yaakov Beersheba ve'elech Harana. Yaakov leaves Beersheba. Jacob leaves his home in Israel, and he goes to Haran, which is out of the land of Israel, and it's where his mother came from. Remember? Oh, we had a whole class on the whole marriage, finding a wife, going back to Abraham's family. Great. So now he's going there as well, ostensibly to get married, but also to run away from his brother, who wants to kill him for taking the blessings. And the Torah says he has a dream. He sees the ladder, sees the angels. Wonderful. And then, if you continue reading the narrative, he goes and he arrives at the town and he goes to the well. And he sees at the well, he sees a young woman, I don't know how old she was, but he sees Rachel. And he sees her and he is smitten with her. Literally, if you look at 149, again, don't worry about it, I'm just going to read this. It says on 149 here, verse 11. Verse 10. And it was when Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, in other words, the daughter of his uncle, his cousin, right? And the flock of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob came forward and rolled the stone off the mouth of the well. All right, he was adrenaline kicked in. He's like, I'm a mighty Jacob. And he pushed the stone that was covering the well that they were all, she was trying to, whatever. She had to wait for more people to roll the rock off the well. Fine. And watered the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother. Great. Then Jacob kissed Rachel. Wow. Okay. I mean, I thought an opening line was, oh, have I seen you before? Or, oh, you come here often? Sorry?
Why do we have Nadir rules now? Because it says here that
That's when
He kissed her.
Well, they're cousins.
Sorry?
This is the South.
Oh, it was his cousin. It was the South. Okay, could be. That doesn't make the rest of the narrative better. I'm just saying look, this is, I'm just reporting the facts. This is all chapter verse. This is not commentary. This is not medrash. There's nothing. This is just straight up text. By the way, it's not like the Talmud or medrash changes it either. 1 second. I'm realizing for some reason we're on the wrong camera. Everything will be better now. Okay. So here we
couldn't hold
he so he sees her. You're right, but I don't know. But so they kissed. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe. I've never seen another commentary, at least on Shad, explain it differently. It says he kissed her. And then he cried because this is a prophecy. He realized they wouldn't be buried together. Fine. Okay. And then he goes to her father, asks for her hand in marriage, and he says, sure, but you will, they negotiate. I guess Jacob makes the offer. Okay, I'll work for her for 7 years, and after 7 years, have her hand in marriage. I don't know. That seems very difficult. I didn't need to do that. I got married.
Already 77.
He was 77 already? And he's working for another 7 years? Oh my gosh. Wow. All right. Listen, the guy's got to do what a guy's got to do. Anyway, he even asked, whatever. And so he works for 7 years, and then the night of the wedding, I don't know, whatever, the wedding arrives, and they get married, and the Torah says, and in the morning, she was the wrong girl. I know the wrong girl, but she wasn't who he had thought that she was. It wasn't Rachel. It was Leah. Bum, bum, bum. And
Which
here we
was
have
promised for
the deception. And here we have the deception. Sorry?
She was the wife to be for his brother.
Right. He not only took his brother's blessing, he took his brother's wife. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah. You see what's going on here? There was a medrash
That's why
There's
she
a-
was
crying.
That's why she had a face that was not nice. And
Tender eyes.
She was crying since she was little.
They said there were
He did
two.
not want to marry.
She
There
did
were
not
two
want to marry.
siblings. The
She's the
siblings.
oldest that was going to marry the oldest cousin.
Right, the siblings, right, brother and sister, Lavan and Rivka, Rebecca and Laban. They each had two kids, right? Well, Laban had more, but whatever. They each had two kids. We'll talk about two primary kids for right now.
Yeah.
Esau and Jacob, and Leah and Rachel. And they said, okay, the cousins will marry each other, the older to the older, to the younger. So that's what the Torah says, that Leah's eyes were tender, which means that she was crying a lot. She had those eyes that looked like she was crying. Her face, whatever. There's actually different commentaries about her face. Whatever. It's her eyes. Some say, by the way, listen to this. How is it possible that the deception happened? He didn't recognize? Did it know? Some say they were twins. Just like Jacob and Esau. Rachel and Leah were also twins. One, yeah. This is a medrash. I'm not saying it's the only
They may
opinion.
not have been identical.
Some say they were identical twins. That's exactly my point. That's where I was going with this. Some say they were identical twins. Her eyes were a little different, whatever. That's why. That's why he didn't realize until the next morning. Twins. It's hard to tell. Some nuances, but maybe it was dark. They didn't have street lamps, whatever it was. They didn't have electricity. The soft, dim glow of a candle. Who knows? All bets are off. The point is that not only does Jacob get his older brother's blessings, he also gets the girl that was destined. Now, that was destined, the Leah, he gets, and then he comes to his father-in-law, he says, how dare you? How dare you trick me? This is not right. He says, what do you mean? I didn't trick you. He says, that's the way it is. The younger daughter doesn't get married before the older daughter. That's not how it works over here. Of course, you were going to marry Leah. Meanwhile, that wasn't what they had agreed to, but he says, of course, what are you talking about? He just flips the script and he says, okay, I'll give you also Rachel, you'll also marry her and you'll work another 7 years, but this time the deal is front.
Robert Gordon used to say that he was the Madoff of his time.
He was the Madoff. Anyway, so he front loaded the contract, which means that he married after Sheva Brachos, after a week. He marries also Rachel, and then he has to work another 7 years for her hand in marriage. I want to read these
You didn't
verses.
have to work the second 7 years first?
No. They reversed the terms. So basically, before the original marriage, he had to work 7 years, but then it was the wrong girl.
One after the other.
So then they waited 7, and then he complained, what are you doing? So they waited 7 days after Sheva, after the week, and then they had the second chuppah, or whatever they had, the second ceremony. He marries the sister, and then he was on the hook for another 7 years, 14 years of work, and then after that they renegotiated the contract, and that's when things got interesting with the speckled, spotted, and striped animals, whatever. That's another drama which we're not going to get into.
But there's just one drama in between that you can elaborate on that.
Sure.
So, how come Leah knew that she was promised to Esau, but Esau did not know that she was promised to him because he went straight to Ishmael.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could be he just did his own thing.
Is that not explained anywhere that you know?
Doesn't ring a bell. Yeah. So why Esau didn't why wasn't he more proactive?
Because Esau didn't even go there.
Yeah, he didn't even show up. Yeah, I don't know. I guess he wanted his own thing. He's like, okay, I got someone from
definitely.
Esau married a woman, Yehudi.
Right. He married Ishmael's daughter.
Yeah,
Basmas. Yeah.
But that was not where he's supposed to be.
There was a tradition. I don't know how much of a thing. I think that they said it was, they said it was going to happen, but as things play out,
Yeah, comprehend two new wives in 8 days.
Yeah, it's a lot of weddings. It's a lot of weddings in a very short amount of time. Now, I want to read, hold on, give me a second. I want to read, where are we? I want to read a few verses and then we're going to jump in because what we're going to cover today is really incredible. We're going to start with, oh, this is craziness. Just absolute bonkersness. We're going to start with verse 20.
So inside.
Yeah, verse 21. I'm going to read a little bit. I'll read and then you'll jump into the text. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to start with on page 151, verse 21. All right. Here we go. Verse 21.
Jacob said to one.
Okay, here we go. So he works for 7 years. Now, verse 1. So Jacob said to Laban, it's different. I'm going to read from here. It's different online, but you'll see it. Jacob said to Laban, deliver my wife and my term is fulfilled, and I will consort with her. He's like, okay, ready to go. Why did he speak like that? I will consort with her. It's a little.
He was 84.
He was 84. He waited 7 years. He's like, all right, let's make this happen. Okay, and I think it was, for the purpose of procreation, etc. I'm sure it wasn't like just, whatever. Fine. Verse 22. So Laban gathered all the
Isn't
people.
that also how they consummated their marriage?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
the reason.
Practice.
What's the Hebrew word that they use?
Va'avo aleha, which literally means, and I will come to her.
Good.
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah. Okay. Listen. Verse 22. That's all right the way Rashi explains it. Verse 22. So Laban gathered all the people of the place and made a feast. Say this about Laban: when he pulls off a trick, he does it in public. He's like the David Copperfield of swindlers. He's like, we're going to gather everybody and make the Statue of Liberty disappear right in front of your eyes, in front of cameras and the whole crew. All right. Next, verse 23. And it was in the evening that he took Leah's daughter and brought her to him, and he consorted with her, with Leah, not with Rachel. And Laban gave her Zilpah, his maidservant, a maidservant to Leah's daughter. Verse 25. And it was in the morning that behold, it was Leah. So he says, so Jacob said to Laban, what is this that you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I worked for you? Why have you deceived me? What is going on? Verse 26. Laban said, such is not done in our place to give the younger before the elder. Complete the week of this one. In other words, literally the Sheva Brachas, the week of celebration for this marriage, and we will give you the other one too for the work which you will perform for me yet another 7 years. In other words, but you have to promise you have another 7 years. Prepaid. Okay, good, fine. All right. Oh, there we go. Sorry for not scrolling further. Verse 28. So yeah, that's what happened. So Jacob did so, and he completed the week for her. In other words, they had Sheva Brachas, the 7-week celebration, and Laban gave him Rachel, his daughter, to him as a wife. There's too many pronouns here, so I'm just going to throw in some names. And Laban, so verse 29, and Laban gave Rachel, his daughter, Bilhah, his maidservant, to her as a maidservant. He consorted also with Rachel. In other words, Jacob, also consorted with Rachel. And he loved Rachel even more than Leah. I always get uncomfortable when it says he loved her more. And right? Jacob loves Joseph more. It always gets, and this never ends well to create these types of things.
Yep.
But anyway, it says he loved her more than Leah, even more than Leah. And he worked for him yet another 7 years. And here's where we stop. Okay. Great. Now,
At least Laban had a plan to get both his daughters off the payroll.
he got both of his
he fell
daughters hitched. Okay. Yeah.
Although he thought he was rich and wasn't anymore.
Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Now, tonight I'm going to pull a fast one. I mean, look, the theme is deception. So here you go. I sent out an email yesterday. I hope everyone's getting the emails. If not, let me know. And I said that if you want to prepare, prepare. Yeah, that's literally what the word is. Oh, you're not getting the emails? Oh,
That one.
huh. All right. Afterwards, let's get you on it. So I said, so prepare the verses. I share those verses and Rashi. Well, here's the deception. Rashi, tonight we're going to deal with a Rashi that doesn't exist. Not with a Rashi that exists, but with a Rashi that doesn't exist. And I know what you're thinking. How are we dealing with the Rashi that doesn't exist? All right, here we go. You ready? We established already for the last, I don't know, what this is lesson 6, the last month and a half. Right, from when we started this, that Rashi will always address any question that comes up in Pshat. In the straightforward reading, Rashi will address it. Which begs the question, because there's a fundamental question in Pshat, in the story, in the narrative, that is just steching the Egen, it's poking us in the eyes, and he doesn't address it. And it does not seem possible that he doesn't address it. Because this is such a fundamental question. Every other commentary addresses this question, except for the one commentary that should address the most obvious questions, and he doesn't address it. That's Rashi. And what's the obvious question? You know what? You'll ask the obvious question. What's the obvious narrative question? How can he marry two sisters? What is going on here? What now? Let me explain the foundation. Let's lay the foundation for the question. The foundation begins with a verse that we have not yet studied. Okay, the verse that we have not yet studied, which says that it is prohibited in Jewish law for a person to marry two sisters. Yes, if somebody marries a woman and she passes away, God forbid, you can marry the sister, sure, but not while they're alive. And if you know this, you know that Torah does not, biblical law does not forbid a man from having more than one wife. Technically, not that that was a mainstream thing, but sisters are banned. So you cannot marry two sisters.
Well, at the same time.
At the same time.
My grandfather was married to two sisters.
Oh, interesting. But one
after the other.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a beautiful story, but one is my grandmother.
Wow.
Long story short, so my grandfather married a woman.
Yeah.
Happened to be my grandmother's sister, older than her. They had a daughter. And when the daughter was not even 2 years old, 2 years old, the mother passed away. And they were very young. Then my grandmother was young, even younger, since she was 17. And she was taking care of her niece.
Mm.
And there was absolutely nothing going on. And then he was concerned he needed to get married again. I was asking him, who's going to want to marry me? I have a 1-year-old.
Right.
And then the family doctor said, you don't see it. You already have who is going to raise your daughter like a daughter. Mm. And you never thought about it. And then the shidduch was made.
Wow.
And then they had
Where was this?
Where was this?
Yeah.
This was in Brazil.
In Brazil. Wow.
In this.
So there you go. Your grandfather
had another 6 kids.
Wow.
That's
So
incredible.
the aunt and the sister are the same.
Yeah, so my aunt is my mother's first cousin, half sister.
Wow. That's an incredible story. That's an incredible story.
But they were absolutely not married to him.
So your grandfather married two sisters, but not at the same time. And that's perfectly fine.
So that's the opposite of spitting in the shoe.
Yes,
that's the opposite. Correct. That's the opposite. That's what the guy. So here's the thing. The Jewish law says, Torah law says, biblical law says that you cannot marry two sisters at the same time. What happens? Jacob is marrying two sisters. All of the commentaries address this. All the major commentaries are dealing with this question. How could Jacob marry two sisters? What was he thinking? And by the way, I know you might be thinking, well, who says he was bound by biblical law, by Torah law? Torah wasn't yet given at Sinai. These laws weren't yet given. So he was up. This is a few centuries, few hundred years before the Torah was given at Sinai. So he's not bound by what was later. But
he just came from over 10 years studying Torah. But
we know that the patriarchs studied whatever they had as a precursor to Torah, and they kept all of Torah even before it was given. And that's something, by the way, that Rashi has already taught us previously. Rashi has taught us that the patriarchs kept the Torah. Take a look. Let's do this. Okay, Jose, please read, if you will. 1 second. Please read text number 2. Okay. This is going to be the prohibition against the marrying of the two sisters at the same time.
Do not take a woman in marriage with her sister as rivals, to uncover the nakedness of one upon the other in her lifetime.
All right, in her lifetime, right? That's the caveat over there, in her lifetime. Now, what's interesting with this, what's very interesting is that the Torah even gives a rationale. It says, do not take a woman in marriage with her sister, and then it adds the words as rivals, which implies that the reason for this is because you're creating a rivalry,
which he did,
between sisters, which actually happens. So it's prohibited. And again, if you say, well, yeah, but it wasn't yet prohibited. This is Genesis, not Leviticus. Take a look at text 3a. David, please read text 3a.
Abraham hearkened to my voice and kept my charge.
What does that mean? And this is a previous verse, because we're up to already Genesis 29. This is Genesis 26. Let's see Rashi. Please read Rashi 3b as well.
he kept my charge, referring to decrees to distance oneself from actions that Torah warns against. For example, prohibitions to prevent illicit relationships.
So already, thank you, already 3 chapters earlier in Genesis, the Torah tells us that Abraham listened to God's commandments, essentially. And Rashi explains these are things that the Torah will eventually warn against. For example, illicit relationships. And it says that Abraham was already fulfilling this. And we know that Abraham is Abraham, Abraham's the dude, because he not only keeps the law, but he instructs his family to keep the law. That's why he's chosen as Abraham, which means that ostensibly Isaac and Jacob were also keeping the law, in which case we can ask the question, and this is all from the verse and from Rashi. So if we've been following along, if Rashi has been leading us by the hand through the verses, then the Ben Chamish Mikra, i.e., you and I who are reading the text, should stop and be very puzzled here and say, Rashi, tap Rashi on the shoulder, can you explain to me how he's marrying 2 sisters? And yes, the student, the 5-year-old, hasn't gone through the whole Torah, so they haven't studied Leviticus yet. But even when we do study Leviticus, it's not like Rashi circles back around and says, oh, and by the way, the reason why Jacob was allowed to do this is because he never resolves this. Rashi doesn't resolve what seems to be an open question. It's not just seems to be an open question. It's such an obvious question and an open question and a star question that every commentary deals with it, with the one exception of Rashi. And Rashi's the one, he should be the first one lining up to deal with it. What's the deal? How come Rashi's not addressing it? I want to share before we move forward. So tonight's class, the reason why I called this deception, not really, is because most classes we're trying to analyze what Rashi said. Tonight we're analyzing what Rashi didn't say, right? The absence of Rashi. By the way, anecdotally, the Mona Lisa was stolen. Not recently, but historically was stolen. There was a period of time where the Mona Lisa was not in the Louvre because it was stolen. It was eventually recovered, but it was stolen for I don't know how long it was absent. Do you know that more people visited the blank spot on the wall than had visited the Mona Lisa prior to that? This is fact. This is true. More people came to see where the Mona Lisa wasn't than where it was. Tonight we're exploring the Rashi that wasn't, or the Rashi that isn't, the missing Rashi. Tonight is the case of the missing Rashi. True crime. This is a true crime thriller podcast happening right now. The case of the missing Rashi. So here we go. Let's put on our detective hat. So first of all, let me give you some classic, wow, I can't even think. Some classic commentaries and explanations. So one explanation is, Ramban says, Nachmanides says, one second. The patriarchs kept the Torah before it was given, but that's only in Israel. When they were out of Israel, they didn't. Okay, that's what he says. That's what Nachmanides Ramban says. So maybe that's an answer, okay? Because he left Israel, went to Haran, and he would say, what happens out of Israel stays out of Israel, right? It's like, I don't know, I was on vacation, I met a girl by the well, one thing led to another, and now I'm married to both. I mean, that's kind of, Richard, jump in.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quickly. They say that's why Rachel died on the way to Eretz Israel, because you were not allowed to have 2 wives in Israel, so she died before they got there. So I'm just throwing that in there. That was
right.
Rahman saying that, yeah. Okay. So he was following the Torah,
but only in Israel. Only in Israel. It's like, when we he's differentiated. So that's an answer. It's an answer that's given. Nachmanides is a big commentary. However, it's very difficult to think that Rashi expected the 5-year-old to know that. Like, there's no indication in the text. It's not, we don't have it's not a pshat. We don't have that woven into the text, this clear idea that, only in Israel did they keep the Torah mitzvah before it was given, but not outside of Israel. And that differentiation of why, if you're in it, you're in it. And why does it depend on where you are? It's like, oh, I'm traveling, I'm in a hotel. Oh, the rules don't apply. I mean, that's a weird distinction to assume that somebody will get without commenting on it.
I mean, except that there are a lot of laws of the land that only apply in Israel. So I think you could make an extension that like, oh, maybe a lot of things are only for it.
Good. So that's he's saying, well, maybe hold on. There are agricultural laws and other laws that are tied into land that are only done in Israel. Good. But typically those are the ones that are tied to some sort of agriculture, some sort of land thing, as opposed to marriage, which is not necessarily, it doesn't intuitively lend itself to being a location-based prohibition. It seems like it's a person-based, not location-based. But you're right. That's a good. Anyway, so Nachmanides, I don't know if he's going to help us. There's another angle that says, listen to this one. Oh, I think you can look this one. Another one that says, I forget who says this, that the girls had converted. I mean, I don't know what the process looked like then, but we would imagine that before they married Jacob, they accepted monotheism. And there is a rule in Jewish law, ger shenit gayer kikatan shenoladami. I'll translate. A convert who converts is like a newly born child, which means halachically, listen to this.
They were not sisters.
They're not sisters anymore. Are you with me? Someone who converts is okay, to borrow an expression, born again. I'm sorry for saying, but like kind of sort of born again, which means that you almost lose your familial
They were both basar and
bonds, right? So like, but that would be too broad. So like they're almost no longer sisters, technically, sort ofly, whatever.
Was it truly a conversion though?
Well,
Did they
that's
have conversions back then.
I don't know what it looked like. I don't think there was like a formal conversion mikvah, but like I don't know, whatever they did. So
Took them into their tent.
so yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, well, he took them into his tent. Done. Conversion settled. Exactly. But here's the point. Some commentators are saying that since we could consider them as converted to Judaism, so therefore they become a new person with a new, almost like a family bond straight through God, straight through Abraham, whatever it is, and therefore maybe they're no longer sisters in that familial sense, and therefore there's no prohibition because whatever. Nice. But the problem with that is, remember I dropped a breadcrumb earlier. I was dropping clues. Oh, I'm so devious. I'm kidding. I was dropping clues before. Remember I pointed out that the Torah gives us a reason for the prohibition. Most times the Torah prohibits something, it's just don't do it. But here, when it comes to marrying two sisters, the Torah gives a reason. Why?
Rivals.
Yeah, we don't want to create rivalry between two people that love each other. You don't want to create a wedge like in between. So even if technically they're no longer sisters, even if you want to say that, yes, fine, technically they're no longer sisters because they're converted, you're still driving a wedge between two people that grew up close with each other, hopefully close with each other and loving each other. And that doesn't seem to be like a nice thing to do. So we're still left with the question. There are many answers that are given, but you could go through some more. But like the point is that each one, it's not only that there's holes in each answer, it's also, I think, more important to understand that each answer requires a little bit of outside knowledge. Like you have to know the law that, or the concept that a convert is considered like a newly born person. And therefore how does Rashi assume that knowledge for the Ben Chamish and Mikra for the 5-year-old? There's no way that Rashi doesn't comment because like, oh, you got this without me. We don't have any of that without you, Rashi. Rashi, how could you leave us at this time of questioning and not comment? And that's where we're stuck with. We're stuck with the Rashi that wasn't. Not the Rashi that was. Tonight, we're looking at the Rashi that wasn't. We're staring at the Louvre, at that blank spot on the wall and saying, Rashi, we need you here to explain how could Jacob married two sisters. And so I want to share with you an angle. This is a talk, an insight that the Rebbe shared in 1967. And it was, this is like 3 years after his mother passed away. And when he started, developing this process of teaching Rashi in a new light. And so this is this week in 1967, 50. Wow. It's a long time, right? Shortly after, I guess, the 6 Day War, right? So this is how the Rebbe explained it. And here's, we'll start here. So there's something called din and there's something called chumrah. So let's develop these terms. What is din?
Law.
What's chumrah?
It's taking an additional responsibility.
So din is the law. Din is like what you have to. Chumrah is I have my own stringency. I have my own, I have my own fence. I have my own quirks. Like I don't like. I have my own mishagats, but like a spiritual mishagats. Like you're allowed to, but I don't, because I'm like I do my thing. So we can pose this as a general question. Obviously, we're going to circle back around pretty soon to this question of Jacob and his sisters. But when if you can keep din, the halacha, the law, and do your chumras and do your stringencies, knock yourself out. Whatever. Sure, you don't want to. It's kosher, but you don't want to because you don't. Sure, whatever. Live your life as you wish. You want to be holy and spiritual, and that's how you. Sure, no problem. But what happens when you have to make a choice between din, between what's obligated versus your stringency, and you can only choose one or the other? What do you think? Which do you think supersedes the other?
Can a chumrah not? How can a chumrah be in conflict?
I can give you an example, but I'll give you an example.
Because I think of chumras as things
As on kappa.
Right.
Okay,
Like Pasha Stroll or Kali.
Right. But what would happen? What would happen conceptually? And I'll give you an example. But conceptually, what would happen if, for whatever reason, the two are not parallel, but the two are now perpendicular? And now you got to choose. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but now it's one or the other. Din, the law, of course, the law. I'll tell you a story. There was once that Chabad typically doesn't do gebruks, right? That's where dipping wedding, dipping your matzah in liquid. So there's different customs, and some do, some don't. Chabad typically, by and large, does not. Why? We can get into it, but because maybe some of the flour and the matzah wasn't fully baked, and when it comes in contact with water, the next thing you know, it's going to turn into a challah roll. Whatever. Conceptually, I'm kidding about that. I was joking. It was a little tongue in cheek, but it may. So we just keep liquid away from the matzah experience. If you've ever been to a Chabad Seder, you might have noticed that the rabbi, I know some Chabad rabbis myself, right? Hey, yo, but they'll eat off the table in a Ziploc bag. Try to keep the liquids away. Try to keep the matzah as dry as possible. There was once a Seder with one of the Chabad rabbis. I think the fifth Rebbe of Chabad lived, 100 years ago or more, whatever. And somebody at the Seder at his table didn't know, and he's dipping his matzah in the borscht.
Nice.
And the Rebbe didn't say anything. And afterwards, one of the people there said, "How come you didn't say anything?" He said, "It's better that the matzah get red and this guy's face doesn't get red." There's a halacha. The din is you're not allowed to embarrass him. It's a chumrah to not dip your matzah in liquid. You see how those two are colliding? That story, I think, says everything. Right? You're not allowed. How Jewish law says you're prohibited to embarrass someone. It says the Gemara says, the Talmud says, embarrassing someone is like killing them. The face changes colors, the blood goes in and out. It's like shfichas damim.
That person hadn't taken that chumrah upon himself.
Which one?
The borscht.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
He didn't have that chumrah.
No, I'm just saying no. But for the Rebbe had on the one hand, at his table that doesn't happen, but that's not halacha. Halacha is the law is you don't embarrass someone. Your stringency that at my table people don't dip. But shelve that. You talk to him later, personally, whatever. You don't say, excuse me, not now. Don't do this here. You have to, so again, and it's just an anecdote. It's not, I don't know if it's the perfect story, but it basically reflects this truth that when it comes to a collision of din and chumrah, din supersedes. Again, I'm using the Hebrew terms, but law versus stringency, the law supersedes.
But non-marrying sisters is din.
So one second. So let's go through this slowly. Now, how many laws were on the books before Sinai? How many laws? Seven. So famously, there are 7 Noahide laws. Now, the reason why they're called Noahide laws is actually a little bit misleading. Why is it misleading? 6 of the 7 God had given to Adam. It's only the 7th that God first gave to Noah. God gave Adam the prohibition against murder, against immorality, again, the mitzvah to have courts and whatever, all of these things. Noah gets one, and he gets the name. It's unbelievable. He gets the naming rights. It's pretty amazing. 7 Noahide laws. Meanwhile, 6 out of 7 are Adam. I don't even know what we call them. Adamite. I don't know, whatever. So Adam's laws. The 7th was not eating a limb of a live animal, whatever, because the humans were vegetarians before the flood. I don't know if you know this. People were prohibited to eat meat before the flood. After the flood, God says to Noah, you did a great job with the animals. Why don't you eat some? I'm kidding. I'm paraphrasing. Something like that, right? So God opens up. I know that was terrible. God opens up the window, as it were, if human beings want, but with a caveat, you can't eat them while they're alive. You have to. Okay.
Don't we have precedent of people marrying siblings? What about Adam's children? Adam and Eve's
Correct,
children.
but not two siblings at the same time.
No, but
Do we know that?
Don't know that.
I don't know. It doesn't say that they
I mean,
married.
there weren't
First of
that
all,
many of them. They had to.
I will say this. I will say this. I will say this. That's a good question, but it's not necessarily a question that comes up from the text, because the text doesn't say that he married a sister or 2 sisters. Here, the Ben Chamish and the 5-year-old that's studying Torah for the first time, and that's you and I also. You don't have to be 5. But if a simple reading of the text, you can't ignore, and we read the verses. He marries Leah, he marries Rachel, and we know they're sisters, and we know that's prohibited, and what's going on. So again, just
Also,
circling.
don't we say that some of the angels came down to have children with?
Yeah, listen, that's all medrash. That's all medrash. It's a pshat. Now, again, just circling back to this idea. So there's 7 Noahide laws. What's interesting is that in addition to the 7 Noahide laws, there were some other binding laws as well. And this refers to, in other words, when we think about din, law, halacha, law, right, whatever, we think about law. So there are the laws that God commanded human beings, like the 7 Noahide laws, all mankind. By the way, that company, 7 for All Mankind, where do you think they got the name from? 7 for All Mankind. Straight up 7 Noahide laws. That's the literally 7 for all mankind. Anyway, so back to the story. So in addition, human beings took upon themselves certain cultural and societal obligations that then become essentially binding on every member of that society, that become essentially what we'd call din, the law. What are some of these? Well, we have some examples, and they're alluded to in scripture, and Rashi points it out. One example is honoring parents. Another one is a prohibition against illicit relations. There's another one about honesty. Let's go through some of these in the text. All right, let's jump in. So, Dasi, if you don't mind, please read text number 5. All right, give me 1 second. Let me pull it up over here. All right, take it away, please.
Terach lived for many years after Avraham left Haran. So why did the Torah relate Terach's death before Avraham's departure? So that the matter would not become public knowledge and people would not gossip that Avraham failed to fulfill the requirement to honor one's father.
Thank you. So Rashi is addressing this question. We read about the passing of Terach before Lech Lecha, before Abraham leaves home. Meanwhile, Terach passed away probably 60, 70 years after that. So why does the Torah tell us about his death out of chronological order? And the answer is so that, because if it didn't, then we would think that when Avraham left, he didn't write, he didn't call. We would think Avraham wasn't in contact with his father. So therefore, the Torah says, oh, he passed away. So just to kind of leave it. But what that means is that the Torah was assuming that at that point, people were honoring their father. It was a thing that people would have gossiped about, not saying that Abraham did or did not follow the laws of the Torah, the values of kibbud av, of honoring his father. He definitely did that. But it was so that people would not gossip. Well, why would the people gossip? Because they had, at that point, society had accepted upon themselves, in addition to the 7 Noahide laws, also the mitzvah of kibbud av v'em, honoring your parents. That was something that became essentially binding on people. Now, another one, Rashi, text number 6. Adrian, if you don't mind, please reading text number 6.
Rape was prescribed when the nations adopted laws against all illicit relationships as a result of the law.
And this is what Rashi says. Thank you. What Rashi says in conjunction with the rape of Dinah. Remember when his sister, when the daughter of Jacob gets abducted and raped, and the brothers say this is not right. This is not done, and that means that the people didn't do it. It wasn't just against Jewish law; it was against societal norms and societal law, which means again that societies had their own laws. In addition to the 7 Noahide laws, there were other laws and laws that were important. Let's take a look at text number 8. And this is very important. Meira, please read text 8. This is going to be key to understanding everything.
And it was in the morning, and behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this that you did to me? Behold, I worked for you for the right to marry Rachel, and why did you deceive me?
Look at that last line. And why did you deceive me? And imagine, he says, and we read this. This is the story where he wakes up in the morning and he married the wrong girl. And this is why he goes to his father-in-law / uncle / schemer. And he says, what you do? You deceive me. And Laban says, no, it's not deception. We don't do that. The older sister has to get married first. Why didn't he just say, yeah, I deceived you? Dude, I'm called Laban Harami. I'm loving this deceiver. Like, you signed up for this. The reason why he didn't say that is because deception was prohibited. It wasn't cool to deceive. Deception was against the law, essentially. Whether it was divine law or humanly accepted law, it was against the law. And here's where we're going with this. Let me connect all of the dots, and it's hopefully going to be magical. Here we go. At that point, it was accepted, and it was taken as a matter of law that if you say something, you have to see it through. You can't deceive. You can't lie. You can't swindle. That's why Laban had to say, well, I didn't swindle. I had to give the older sister first, but you could still marry the younger one. He had to weasel his way out of it because he had a reason. You can't just be deceptive. Jacob had promised, listen to this. Jacob had promised the girl that he was going to marry her. What was her name? Rachel. He had promised her. That was his word. He had to keep his word. There's a prohibition in the Torah to marry 2 sisters. Was he bound by that law? No. He wasn't bound by later Torah law. Oh, he kept all the laws before it was given as a stringency, as a chumrah. You can't put your personal stringency before your promise. You promised to marry Rachel. Oh, Rachel, I'm so sorry. I can't marry you anymore. I'm married to your sister. Sorry, I have a brother. Oh, do I have a brother for you? He couldn't renege on his promise. You with me on this?
Yeah.
He made a promise to a young girl. I don't know how old she was, to a girl, to marry her. He had a personal stringency. I'm going to go above the letter of the law and keep all of Torah before it was given. Don't put your borscht before the guy's embarrassment. Don't put I'm not gonna marry 2 sisters. That wasn't yet illegal. It wasn't yet law. There was no law against it. You want to say, but I consider it law. Who are you to put your stringencies before someone else's necessities, before what's decent and honest? You promised her. The Rebbe says this. You're gonna leave her to the wolves? To what? To marry Esav? Who's she gonna marry? You promised her. You can't leave her high and dry. You're already married to a sister. So what? The Torah says later in Leviticus. It doesn't tell you now. You have an obligation. The obligation is to keep your word. Don't put your personal stringency of what the Torah is going to say later before your obligation now. Again, I just want to make sure that this is landing. The point is that the prohibition against marrying 2 sisters was not yet binding as law. It wasn't law. Yeah, the patriarchs and the matriarchs, they kept the Torah before it was given, but not as an obligation. They did it as a personal stringency. You cannot put your stringency ahead of the law. And what's the law? The law is not only the 7 Noahide laws, but the way decent people live their lives. And decent people, They keep their word and they don't leave people high and dry. And that is the way the Rebbe explains it. It's such a beautiful idea here. Take a look.
So are you saying that Rashi didn't deal with it because there was nothing to deal with?
Yeah. Oh, so let's round it out. Yeah. So the question was, how come Rashi doesn't address it? And the way the Rebbe explains it is because Rashi's expecting the 5-year-old even, based on and there's a lot of Rashis that we kind of alluded to, is that we know by now that there are laws. We know by now that there's decent morals. And we know a few verses earlier that Jacob calls out his father-in-law for being deceptive, meaning deception is not okay. So how could he be deceptive? In other words, if he's calling out, I know deception with the blessings, we'll have to leave that aside. All right, we'll have to leave that aside. I don't know. His mother told him, I guess. Now he was on the hook. Do I listen to my mother? Or do I be deceptive? Huh? Wait. Get Honor's mother. That was also binding. There you go. Oh, that's din against din. That's law against law. And the way it works is your mother comes first, right? It's like, I would love to be honest, but my mother told me to lie. So here we are. But the point is, and it's an unbelievable concept. The point is that Rashi, right, David, you're right on point, is that ostensibly Rashi is expecting us to recognize that there are laws, that there were societal norms, that there were things that people accepted themselves. One of them was the not being deceptive rule, and that, yes, even if the patriarchs were super frum, were super observant, that they would keep things that they didn't have to, but not at the expense of their word, not at the expense of an innocent of an innocent party. You can't put your frumkeit, you can't put your piety over someone, not at someone else's expense. It's like a famous story with a Salanter Rav. He's like, he used to wash, when he washed his hands, for whatever, for bread or what, he used a lot of water. Well, one time he washed his hands with only a little water, and someone said, what's going on? He says, I see what's happening. There's a woman, the maid or whatever is getting the water from the well. I'm going to make her take extra trips because I use a lot of water. If there's water available, that's one thing. But I'm not going to make someone go out of their way for my extra piety. And that's, I think, the key point over here of this class. Yeah.
We don't have any evidence that it bothered Jacob at all, this piety stuff. He just wanted to marry Rachel, period. He wasn't worried about the law. I shouldn't. Was he?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's a good challenge there.
Yes, that was a good challenge. It even sounded like, I was going to say objection, Your Honor. That sounded like almost like a lawyer. No, it was well phrased. Look, I don't know. This is the way that the Rebbe explains why the absence of Rashi, because Rashi was considering that we would recognize that there are things that are required and then there are the extra things. And you don't put the extras before the requirements. A requirement is you got to stick by your word. A requirement is you don't leave someone high and dry. That's required. You have a thing, you have a shtick where you do, it's like the reverse of the colonial reenactments. Like, I'm going to reenact something that doesn't yet exist. That's your mishagas. That's your extra thing. Don't put your extra thing before necessities. And I want to conclude with the takeaway that the Rebbe says. He says, he gives a physical and spiritual example of this. I'll share with you a very quick anecdote. I don't know if it's an anecdote, but there's a letter that the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, writes to the community in Russia where he was. And he says, lately, the tzedakah that's going to Israel, because he used to collect money for Israel. In fact, he got one of the reasons why he faced charges of high treason against the Tsar is because they were sending money to Israel, tzedakah money to Israel. He was coordinating it for the Jews, for the poor Jews living in Israel. And that was under the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire and the Russians, they weren't necessarily the best of friends. And so he was accused of going against the Russians by supporting the Ottoman Empire. And he's like, I'm not supporting the Ottomans. Huh?
By our own people.
By our own people, correct. I'm not supporting the Ottomans. I'm supporting the Jews that live in Israel. That's the beginning and end of it. Anyway, so at some point, the donations were kind of slowing down. And so he writes a letter to the community. He says, I understand things are tight. I understand that. But understand that the money that you're giving is for their basic necessities, whereas you need money for things above the basic necessities. Don't put your luxuries, I don't know what kind of luxuries that were, but don't put your luxuries before someone else's necessities. Does that make sense? It's the same theme of tonight. Don't put your luxuries, I keep the whole Torah. Do you have to? No, not at someone else's expense. not so it's about, so again, the physical example is not withholding. If somebody has a need and you have your needs are fine, but you're thinking about, something beyond needs, that shouldn't supersede someone else's need. And then the Rebbe turned to spiritually as well. Somebody says, this was 1967. As if you know, around the 6 Day War, before the 6 Day War, the Rebbe started the tefillin campaign, which is wrap tefillin. And some people said, I can't go out and wrap tefillin with people because I have to study Talmud. I got to study, I got to pray, I got to do my thing. The Rebbe said, don't put your extra page of Talmud in front of someone else's basic mitzvah. Someone needs to put on tefillin, they don't know how. Right? You're the guy to do it. You got to help them out. That's a necessity. That's a need. You want to study an extra 5 pages of Talmud? Don't put your luxuries in front of someone else's needs. Jacob did not put his luxury before someone else's need. We shouldn't be, and we shouldn't do that either. And that's the lesson. That's really the takeaway from today's class. And that is, we should be focused on each other's needs. We should recognize that sometimes I don't need to have all my luxuries. Sometimes I don't need to have all my chumras, all my the non-essentials. Let me make sure, but I got to make sure that I have the essentials we're going to take care of. But anything beyond the essentials, let me think about taking care of someone else. That's true whether it comes to tzedakah, whether it comes to helping someone spiritually, and that of course is the key to tonight's story. The drama with Jacob and Rachel, the way the Rebbe understands it, the way the Rebbe understands Rashi's lack of comment on the story is that he doesn't put his extra flourishes above her needs. He promised they would get married. He can't leave her. Who else is she going to marry in the family? Esav. I can't do that to her. You can't string her out like that. So,
but he also wanted.
And he wanted, no, that's 100% true. He wanted her, he loved her, he kissed her. Yes, for sure. But that was her need. His chumrah, his flourish of I keep the Torah, it hasn't been given yet, but that's a thing that I do. You can't put that in front of that. And again, the takeaway is, let's not put our luxuries before before the essentials for someone else. Jacob was able to say, you know what, I don't need the extras. Let's stick with your essentials. We should do the same for each other. And I think it's a beautiful thing for a person to say, I'm okay. I don't need. I can give. I can be there for you. It's fine. I have a little less. It's okay.
They were rivals then.
At the end, they were rivals. At the end, it did create a little conflict. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I just want to dedicate this class to Refulo Shlomo to my brothers that went through Shalom David, Ben Sarah Hudel, and Abraham Mendel, then Sarah Hudel.
So let's wait. That's very important. Let's mention names. So Adrian, these are your brothers. So
they're both in Israel.
They're both in Israel. Okay, so let's dedicate. Yeah. So tonight's we'll dedicate the learning and all the learning and the inspiration that we get tonight. Okay, so tell me the first one's name.
Shalom
David. Ben Sarah Hudel. And Avram Mendel ben Sarah Hudel.
Amen.
All right, they should have healing and good health, and you should continue to have many opportunities to get together and to share in simchas, and they should be healthy and only have nachas from each other. Let us say amen. All right, so remember the moral of tonight's class, the takeaway is think about each other and be there for each other. And the extras, all right, we'll have the extras later, not right now. Right now we're gonna help each other out with what we need. Make sense?
Sure.
The case of the missing Rashi. Solved. Our record is impeccable here. Pleasure. Thank you. All right. Questions, comments? Yes.
So if he has an obligation to Rachel, I guess.
You tell me.
Thursday.
Yes, Thursday. Yeah, we'll see that.
And the way you were phrasing it, like who else is she gonna marry? I mean, he had the obligation from having promised her, but like, who was Leah gonna marry? Was there? No, I guess there wasn't any consideration.
That's a good question. I guess it's more about him having promised her, coupled with the fact that if he reneges on that promise and he backs out because he's like, well, I can't. Well, who says you can't? I say I can't. Whoa, slow down. It's not that you can, you don't want to. That's not nice. And now who's she going to marry? I think that comes secondary to the fact that he had promised her, because you're right. If he had married Rachel like originally his plan was, then what about Leah? He would throw her to the wolves, string her out high and dry. You're right. It's a good question. I guess it's mainly because he promised her, coupled with the fact that it's not like she has a backup plan, right? If she had a backup plan, you could say it's also not essential. You know, people, we don't get our first pick. I don't get my first pick. You don't get your first pick. Okay. So for both of us, it's not ideal. Like, I would love to keep the Torah before it's given. You would love to marry me. It's not going to work out. One of us is going to have to, something's going to have to give. So why should I give? You give. But here it's not an equal give. It's like either I don't get to do my, pre-Torah shtick, or I break a promise with you and you marry Asa. That's not an equal bargain. He has to go and be there for her at that point. That's what I think.
So the examples given tonight of like chumrah versus din, like the din is basically kind of one type of mitzvah and the chumrah is a different kind of mitzvah. Are there any examples where chumrah and din would be of the same type of mitzvah and be like in combat?
I don't think so. Where chumrah and din are that, because that's what David was asking.
Yeah.
Like, if you're layering on top, if it's like Pas Yisrael, like I only eat the or Chalav Yisrael, like chicken and dairy. The cow had to study Tanya in the morning before we milked it. I'm kidding, but like conceptually, like I only drink that type of milk. I don't know how that could come into conflict with the actual kosher. Like it's a level above. I think it's when you have two different things.
Great example, though, and that's chicken and dairy.
Chicken and dairy, right?
That's
yeah, but that's there. Chicken and dairy that's not chumrah. That's already accepted in the Gemara. That's already accepted. It's rabbinic, but it's accepted halach. That would already be considered din. Listen, we're considering the honesty of the ancient what's it called again? Karnites, for lack of a better term, as din. This would that
it's created because of offense.
There was a reason why they made it, but they made it. Yeah, I'm with you. But that was already they made that as a thing.
By the way, you could go further in even beef and milk.
Oh, not in its mother's milk, right?
Because today it's not going to be on its mother's.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to find in this.
For that matter, fish and chicken.
That's sakana. That's that's not even right. That's a health thing. That's not even a halacha necessarily. Halacha talks about
I'm
health.
not sure if it's health, right? It's the same as my grandmother would say with watermelon and milk.
Oh, what was that?
Yeah, I couldn't have it.
Watermelon and milk? Really?
Like
because the seeds?
No.
Just because
apparently it was not good for your health.
It's not good for your health. Interesting. One of the rationales I once heard for the fish and the meat is because the fish you'll eat because you see the bone. Fish you won't. So if you're eating it together, you might choke on a bone. I don't know how often that happened back in the day, but that could be a thing.
Are the no-hide laws, are they set forth in the Torah? Are they listed?
Yeah.
They are.
I mean, it's not listed.
You
have to extract it a little bit. It's not, we have them. It's in the class. Here, I'll show you. They're in one of the texts. Yeah.
They were listed in the text, but I'm saying in the
text form. No, it's not. It's not like it's not like the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are listed very neatly. It's more like the 613, where you have to kind of like bob and weave and pull them out. But it's there. All of these things are mentioned there. It's mainly we get them from the rationales given for why God destroyed the world with the flood and everything. It's like because they were violating those. Right. They did this. They did that. There was Hamas. There was robbery, violence, etc., adultery, all that stuff.
You don't keep those 7 things, we are destroyed.
Exactly. That's clearly not.
So then the 7th one, is that a kosher thing? I mean,
no, it's not kosher.
What is that? I mean,
kindness to animals.
Yeah, it's a kindness to animals thing. Yeah, you can't be cruel to animals. If you're gonna eat, you don't have to eat animals. If you're gonna eat animals, you have to do it in a humane fashion to the animal. Yeah, you can't be cruel to it.
You got to take a sledgehammer to its head first.
Because that's the humane way.
Well, it wasn't something yet.
I actually wonder. You're probably right. You may be pretty close. Maybe not that. Maybe a stone. But yeah.
there any debate over what the 7 Noahide laws are, or it's the
I don't
ones
believe
listed
so.
here?
I don't believe so. I think the Talmud goes through it. Maimonides calls it. Yeah, I think it's pretty set as to what those are. I don't recall there being any dispute about that. The 613, there are disputed lists. Disputed lists. There's a question about what's in and what's considered as one of the main 613 and what's a subcategory, and there's a different main category. Whatever.
Not from Rambam stuff.
Well, Rambam has one list, but there's others. The Smag, there's like others that have their own lists that have a different count. I personally find this message. I was just in New York this weekend for the Chabad conference, and on Sunday in a banquet. And if you want, I can show you my selfie video that I took and whatever in the ballroom. But like, you're in a room with like 4,000 or 5,000 guys from literally around the world. I mean, you got guys from all continents.
And they're all dressed alike.
They're all dressed alike. Yeah, it's like where's Waldo? Like where's Mendy? It's like literally where's Waldo?
3,000 penguins.
4,000 or 5,000 penguins, exactly. But it's like, and then you realize that like, if everyone lived by Chumrah, this wouldn't exist. Like that's 1967. What was the Rebbe saying? He's saying, leave Brooklyn, leave the shtetl, leave the yeshiva, leave the base medrash, and go out there to put on tefillin with something. Create a Chabad house. Like go be there for people's essentials. But I have family here. My kids are not going to have grandparents there. We're not going to have kosher ice cream. We're not going to have the infrastructure. All of that is icing on the cake. Let go of your chumrah, let go of your icing for someone's basic needs. If this is not just a Dvar Torah, it's not just an insight into Rashi. This is literally the very DNA. If you want to know what Chabad is, it's this. It's this insight. That's where it's like, this is like the Rebbe's call. Leave Brooklyn, move out to, my friend is in like, I see him. I went to yeshiva with him. He didn't speak Russian. He lives in Rostov on Don. He lives right there, and he's speaking on the thing, and he's fluent Russian or Ukrainian. I don't know if that's Russia or Ukraine. I think is it Russia or Ukraine?
I think it's Russia.
Russia. Yeah, he's speaking fluent Russian. Like, where did this guy come from? He even speaks like a Russian. He's got like a growly voice. Like, I'm like, hey, it was a growly back then, but he's got that like that Russian like style of speaking, and it's like, it's amazing. This guy is like, and he was a shliach first in Southern California, and he's like, this is too easy. I'm going to Rostov. I'm done. Like I'm going to Russia. This is 20 years ago, right? I mean, I went to Atlanta. That's not. I didn't give up much in Atlanta. I'll be honest. I mean, like I'm not like a frontliner. There are guys that are like, my wife has cousins that are in Ukraine. I mean, a guy, this is not, no one's looking for a pat on the back. I'm just saying this. I was thinking about this in context. I wasn't going to mention it, but I'll mention it. But I am mentioning it now. I'm looking around at a room and I'm thinking, because I looked at the original talk. I studied it from the inside, from the original Hebrew and Yiddish. And I was preparing, I was in my head and I'm looking around the room and I'm thinking, this room doesn't exist without this theme.
Yeah.
This is the world view. This is like you pull this idea out and Chabad doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's not just Chabad, so who cares about it? This network of family, it's not even an outreach organization, it's this network of family. Wherever you are in the world, you have mishpacha, you have a place to go for a meal and for a service, for davening, for an aliyah if you need, a kaddish, a kosher meal, a preschool, a camp, wherever you go, like it doesn't matter. There's something, Hebrew school, there's something for you and for your family. There's a meal ready for you. We're literally like wherever you are, and everyone knows that at this point, everyone's like, oh, yeah, you're traveling, call Chabad. It's like a normal thing. Yeah. Even for people, by the way, that in their own town, they would never walk into Chabad. But when they're traveling, of course I call Chabad. It's an interesting thing. But the point is, none of that exists. All of it's driven by a vision. And the vision is, don't put your luxury before someone else's need. There's a need. There's a need. If not for you, who's gonna build the mikveh in the Congo? People have to go to mikveh in the Congo. Who's gonna make the mikveh in the Congo? Go to Congo, build a mikveh. I need to build a mikveh for someone else. What about my stuff? You'll be okay. Your needs are fine. You got it. Your luxuries, you want your kid to grow up with an ice cream store? Okay, take it easy. Don't, it's all right. Your kids won't have kosher ice cream. They'll have to come in once a year. My kids go, and there's no ice cream store in the land. They come into Crown Heights and they hit the ice cream store. Oh, sweet expressions on Kingston Avenue. They love it.
If you give up your Gomra of Fellow Yisroel, then there's ice cream.
Oh, there you go. That's
Like,
right. That's right.
I can send you an ice cream maker, Ari.
Huh?
I can send you an ice cream maker.
I don't know. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know. We'll talk offline.
Okay.
I don't know if it's gonna work. Whatever. I mean, I don't know how often it's gonna get used. The point is that, like, it just struck me as like this talk tonight, this explanation in Rashi. It's not just an explanation in Rashi or in the missing Rashi. It's a worldview, and it's like, who are we if we're not there for each other? I need another, like, I need more. I don't need more. You don't have. Why do I need more? I'm collecting more and you don't even have to begin with. That's not right. I need to make sure that you're okay. Then if we're all okay, then we can all work on more. I don't need to take more before you have. That's tonight. All right. What can we say? So much to live up to. All right. We'll see you all. Thank you for joining. Enjoy the cold.
I am.
Reminds you of what was it? Canada, Toronto. All right. Reminds you of Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure. All right. We'll see you guys. Good to see you, Mom, and Dr. Maxie, and Danny, and Amy, and Sam, and Kay, and Vlad, and Ray. Good to see you. And Matt, and Lisa, and Matthew, and Eric, and Julie. Good to see you guys. Lila Tov.